fit?
Yeah, I'm good.
Cool.
Adjusted my pillow.
My love bite. And we just, our job and our responsibility as licensed agents is to be forthright with insights that we've seen. And these have all come about in the last, especially for me this week, especially the last 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
But had a sentiment to explore these things in the last couple of weeks. So
yeah,
I think.
No, I agree, and we have to talk about it.
Hey guys, Shelby here with Shelby Budget Realty. We've got a good buddy of mine, John Johnson with Mod Realty here, and kind of doing some coffee, hanging out, and just kind of talking about the market, huh?
Yeah. We were just kind of going over just kind of what we're seeing in the marketplace. Shelby and I have been friends for years. We met in real estate. We actually heard more about each other
through dirt
biking and real estate, and people like drew a line. They're like, "How don't you know each other?" And that was years ago. So since then, we've always just stayed in contact and talked about real estate. We're at 2 different brokerages, and
we've got different perspectives and like different, I guess, niche areas within real estate, which has been cool because I've learned a ton from John over the years, and we've been able to have some good conversations.
And I've looked up to Shelby and learned a ton as well. So it's a good relationship.
So today we're just gonna go over some things that we've been seeing happening in the market nationally, locally, and give you guys hopefully some good insights, some good information to really sit back, evaluate what your goals are in real estate or investing or otherwise, and just kind of provide some context as to what this next season of real estate may look like in Boise and potentially the national market too.
Yep, exactly. And we're just gonna show what we see going on in the market and let you kind of take that and run with whatever your needs are. And so starting off. So what I found hilarious is I've been thinking about these same points and through a different deal we got on the phone, and it was weird. We linked up on every topic that we were both thinking about it. We weren't hearing about it or anything like that, but we were just on the same point. So I wanted to just
I had a few things in my mind. So I've kind of been mulling over the idea of the winds a little bit changing in the market nationally and locally. Yep. My wife and I, we invest in single family properties. That's kind of our little venture. We're not, this mass, tons of doors or anything, but it's one of our long-term goals. Yeah. And so we've been dabbling a lot out of state, looking at those markets from a return perspective, which there's some great ones, there's some volatile ones, and also we own properties here locally, and so we wanted to really get a good pulse. So I've seen some things come up, especially in the last probably 2 weeks specifically, and so it made me jump in to look at some of the data locally, and I called John, and John was like, he added a few more things to the list that kind of culminated and created a good perspective on what's happening. So one of the first things I brought up that really came to mind was Monday. I looked at some of the news reports and articles, and it had mentioned that futures on lumber had dropped over 40%, pretty much overnight. Like crazy.
That's huge.
And what's been like the main thing driving price on houses right now?
Lumber. Yeah.
So we're doing build jobs. You guys are building some beautiful custom homes with folks, and the lumber has been a huge
hurdle. It's lumber, but then it's all your appliances. Everything is 6 months out.
Wow.
Finally getting caught up with that, right? I mean, we went in and got a fridge for a new build the other day. We were able to go in and get the fridge same day, which was unheard of in the last year.
And the futures too, like today's lumber costs obviously ridiculously high. OSB is just ridiculous. I mean, we're 7-8x what we used to be. Yeah. And that may not affect us, next month or next week because they're futures estimates on prices, but it's going to come down the pipe, right?
Yes, exactly. And then also the other point you brought up was the inventory increase. I don't have that percentage. What was
So the inventory increase, I noticed on Monday of this week, so we're in mid-month of June here, and we had, just on Monday was 11 to 12% of the last 30 days of new inventory on market had come up within 24 hours. And since then, we've been seeing a consistent flow and new inventory coming on at a similar rate just in the last 3 days. So that's interesting. Yeah. And it's great because we are massively under supply on inventory, but it's also another thing to be mindful of, right?
Yeah. So what do you think's driving that increase in inventory?
So I think quite a few things. I think that the biggest thing, I guess the overall theme of what my mindset has been and what I think all these points we're going to talk about kind of lead to is that action follows emotion, right?
Yeah.
And I think that buyers have been tired. You're competing, you know how it goes. Sometimes 20, 30 offers on a property, like a median home.
And they're defeated the second they get to the door. We stood in a line the other day with 8 groups in front of us. We're going down the sidewalk. 8 groups of people in front of us.
And that's been the norm for like a year and a half. And it's obviously been worse the last 6 to 9 months especially.
Exactly.
And so I think that has put people in a position where they realize, okay, I may have been on the fence about buying a new home.
Yeah.
A lot of people have moved here in the last 2 to 3 years, right? And so they're hitting that 2-year mark for being tax exempt on profits on their primary residences, and they're saying, hey, I can take home, realistically, $400,000 to $600,000 on pretty normal homes in the valley. And that's just ridiculous.
Show me
ready to go.
any investment other than like getting in Google, really,
right? It takes you double, and like literally some homes have doubled in 12 months time, which is just astronomical. So I think people are taking advantage of that. I think people, they think, okay, we've been on a good bull run for 11, almost 12 years now in the valley, and economically, how long can this go? We don't know the answer, but there's always indicators that in retrospect you're like, oh, I know that was that's why that happened, right?
Yeah. And I have a listing came up today, that exact same scenario that you just listed. He bought it 3 years ago. They've had a good run. They've rented it out. It's been a great property, and the equities just went up so much that he goes, listen, even if it continues to go up, I'm pulling out now,
still good.
and I'm doing very well.
Yes.
And it's crazy to think he bought 3 years ago.
And it's that type of return.
Over almost double.
Yeah.
Right?
And people are thinking, and if I were approaching a conversation from a financial perspective, you look at something and say, okay, we've gone up X amount, say even 100% increase in 24 months, let alone 12 months. How much more can we see another 100% in the next 12 months? Not likely, right?
Yeah, because as you know, the locals can't. Yeah. They can't purchase at that, right? And once you get
local median income is not in relation to what we're seeing coming in the state.
Yeah, and there's a point where you get so far outside of that local market that there has to be that rebalance.
It's only inevitable, and from my perspective, who knows if it's now, if it's in 3 years, how long the can gets kicked down the road. But there's a lot of factors at play, of course.
And so rolling into that, I think one of the biggest factors, right? There's a few big factors, but I would say probably the biggest factor right now is we have 4 national builders moving into this marketplace. The big boys, right? And from my title rep, he also said there are other big ones looking, but there are 4 who are in this market. They have their Idaho address.
And they've got cash to play with.
They got cash. One of them has a $1 billion budget, right? That was a number that was put out, and that's pretty aggressive.
Names are starting to acquire and have been acquiring some property under the radar for some time.
Exactly.
In the hundreds of millions of dollars worth of land assets.
Yeah, and one of them, you can go on their site and it says breaking ground in Idaho soon. Like that's on their front page of this national builder.
Yeah.
So what I see happens there, without too much speculation, and I'll let you guys kind of do with what you want with this information. They employ. They're bringing in their own title company. They're bringing in their own mortgage. They're
providing a labor force at a rate that is suitable for them.
Yeah, and they can knock out houses faster than our entry level guy can, and they can do it
faster than our custom home builders. Unfortunately,
and they can
a lot of them
do it at a quality that just a quality and price that undercuts everything pre-existing and new build as well.
And that's a term that's been used in the past when this same type of environment has developed with national level builders coming into fairly small markets like ours. They call it consolidation, right? Where They come in, it sounds like a great thing for the market from a high level, like, oh great, they're coming in, they're investing in our area, this is wonderful. And there are a lot of positive attributes to that, but there are also side effects that do occur, meaning when they do come in and they're able to produce a product, i.e., the big box stores that we see that can mass produce the same t-shirt at a lower cost, what happens for the price point for all products on market? Custom and that are done in a production scale.
Yeah.
They all come down.
They all come down. They all come down, and if they can't come down, they get squashed.
Yes,
right?
they burn out.
And that's another, probably a negative side effect, or it goes both ways. It's healthy for the market. It's a cycle, right?
Yeah.
It's healthy for the market. It's healthy for the consumer. But we have X amount of builders. We see that could get just squashed, right? Down to a much more realistic number.
Yeah, and this has happened in markets previous to our market, so it's nothing new. It's just new for our local area here. So that's something to keep in mind too. Another huge topic, and of course it's going to be a pretty substantial video, so we appreciate you guys watching. There's a lot of good info here if you do spend the time to watch and listen. But another big topic that you'd mentioned is forbearance, right?
Yeah.
Can you explain just real quickly at a glance what forbearance is and why it came about, obviously through COVID, and what the effects are?
Yeah, so with forbearance came around when jobs were, there's a stay-at-home order, and then there was the essential workers only could go to work. So there are these people that were now out of job or out of monthly paycheck or whatever that may be. So the banks, the lenders put in this forbearance. So they didn't have to pay their mortgage for 1, 2, 3, 4 months, depending on each one was different, what they could do. And the thing is, the media put out there that you're going to be able to
pause your mortgage,
and that forbearance amount that you missed is then going to get tacked on to the end.
That's not true.
It's not true. It was true for some cases. I don't know.
Right?
Yeah, it was
the
more of a
mortgage goes to the tail end. The forbearance.
Yeah.
Say you miss 3 months, right? And your mortgage is $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
On month 3, as I understand it, you owe $3,000 back pay plus interest plus the next month. So you have $4,000 and change due on month 3 or day 1 of month 4. So imagine these people. There's millions of Americans that have gone into forbearance because of financial situations, and those are going to be coming due this year.
Yeah, and that just to backtrack a little bit, the forbearance. The term was used differently by different financial institutions, and different media outlets were using it differently. So there were some forbearances that were going on the end, and they were calling them forbearances.
And then it got
mixed up. So then everyone's just like, well, hey, I get my stimulus check. I don't have to pay mortgages. Why do you think all these people have brand new vehicles? I've never seen this many new vehicles. Not to go down a rabbit hole.
Especially in Boise.
Yeah. But to go back on that now, month 3, you're owed that back plus your current.
Some people are coming into like $20,000 bills due.
Yeah,
a year of forbearance.
Yeah, and then there are people who owned investment properties and they did it, 10x, right? And there's some big numbers. So this is the kicker where now to cash out refi your forbearance,
which would be a logical, my house has gone up $200,000, I don't care, I'll just pull cash out and pay my settlement and proceed,
right?
How does that actually work in reality?
So right now,
what have folks you've been working with experienced, I guess?
Yes, what we have experienced with our lender, multiple lenders, you have to have a 12-month payment history, a good payment history, current payment history,
no missed
to do that cash out refi, or you have to bring those funds to closing to get your cash out.
Yes. Which leaves you an option of either gift donation potentially from a family member to settle, then do your cash out and pay them back, which is really complicated.
Yeah.
And there's some weird stuff with that. Or you sell your house, right?
Yeah. Whether it be a short sale or maybe not even go that far and just sell, but then you have to have good standings to then qualify for another house, so then do you go on a rental? So it's getting very hairy.
Some gray areas.
And that was this whole COVID rush. Everyone just rush, hey, go work from home, or hey, don't pay your payment. We'll figure it out later. We'll figure it out later.
A miniature gold rush for everybody.
Yeah, it was that, and then it was just like they had so much front end logistical stuff to figure out that those little details kind of got missed, right?
And now those people that have forbearance due coming up, they're probably sitting on the fence saying, market's high.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and list, which is going to add to our inventory, right?
Yep. Yeah. But then the complicated thing, so adds to the inventory, are they rolling in as?
How are they going to
Are they going to be buyers after that? Or are they going to be renters, right? Does that soak up the market inventory?
Sure.
Right? I think it doesn't. I think that they go be renters for X amount of time.
I think so too, because they're probably a little jaded with the whole experience.
Yeah.
People get a little bit cash bruised.
Lending gets a little bit complicated when you they look like missed
payments.
payments, right?
And you can't do that.
Yeah, so
and everyone was trying to help out during COVID. Of course, the government steps in. Lenders are trying to figure out solutions and keep everything together. And of course, there's going to be some holes in the webbing for that. So.
Yeah, and to kind of rolls perfectly into our next topic of employment.
Yes.
All these employers, wherever it may
Have
be.
you seen signs everywhere?
Yeah.
Restaurant workers, laborers, framers, everybody needs labor because
on June 19th, the unemployment assistant is over, right? Which is great. We're going to see that,
Which means Joe Schmo isn't going to be making more sitting on the couch collecting his unemployment stimulus or his unemployment assistance, I guess you should say, than what he did working 8 to 10 hours doing a labor job or a server job or whatever it may be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's that going to do? A resurgence of available labor forces, correct?
Yep.
Which all in all, supply and demand, just like our market, the more labor we have, labor rates are going to decline. Labor is going to decline in futures. We're going to see a settling of baseline costs with the culmination of these things happening. More inventory creates a lower price point.
Yeah.
Those are historically proven facts.
Yeah. These are not us.
Not that they may happen. Maybe we'll get a unicorn. Who knows?
Yeah.
But
there's just so many of these points, right? And there's so many factors leaning this way.
Yeah.
But to go on employment, the start of COVID. Everything was on fire. Everyone's like, what are we doing? What are we doing? How are we doing this? Am I essential? Am I unessential? What are we doing? And these corporate people were like, to keep business going, go work from home, right? But that's really all they said. They said, go work from home. They had so much front-end logistical stuff on how to change their business, how to adapt to working from home. Cut overhead. Deal with...
Great, my overall overhead is less.
Yep.
My employees are currently working remotely, maintaining usually a similar salary. Now we're going back into motion. How do we, as a corporation, from their perspective, whether it's ethical or not, how do we go ahead and increase our profits?
Yeah, and so what they're seeing is, hey, where is your primary residence?
Are you in California?
Are you in
Seattle?
Can you come back to the office for a day a week, or or whatever it may be?
Some policy.
Yeah, so what they're finding is these people have moved to Idaho or to Texas
Indiana,
or to South Carolina, wherever, name it, right? Yeah. And now these employers are like, whoa, wait a second, we're still paying you California wages.
Let's go ahead and get a study going.
Let's get a study going, and there's these companies out there that do these studies and they evaluate what X job pays in X city.
Cost of living,
and they take everything into account. And so without going too detailed in that, we're seeing, I've had 2 clients call me, hey,
companies starting to pursue,
they're going to pursue this.
Wage cut.
If my wage gets cut, can I afford this house I bought 6 months ago?
Does it make it justifiable, right?
Yeah.
And from my experience with clients, when we do see wage declines, most of the assessments say about 22 to 25% from major metro markets in California, San Diego, San Jose, to Boise. So that theoretically would be maybe a starting baseline to see what may come down the pipe if companies do deploy that type of policy. And again, this is one minute thing, but we put these all together and they create a response from us and the market and buyers and sellers.
Yeah, so
that's interesting.
And then here's another little kind of side note without going too far down this rabbit hole. what happens if you're getting a 25% pay cut or 35% pay cut? Who knows what that happens, because these corporate companies, they have their little tricks on how to label that job description for it to come in valued less than possibly what that job description is. Now there's disputes and whatnot, and you know, we are going to get there.
Tactics that are being employed.
Yeah, these are tactics that we see actively being deployed. So my thing is, what happens? How much does that pay decrease happen to the cost of living? To where California doesn't seem that undesirable now.
Yeah, you live on the beach. They got a lot of things that are pushing people out, and that's a whole nother topic. But at some point, the equilibrium can shift or rebalance, right? So that's interesting too.
Yeah. So it's just something to.
And another thing, so we're going to go through these as quickly as we can. Thanks for continuing to watch. Hopefully, this is insightful for you guys. Is sentiment, right? The overall sentiment of Americans, the overall sentiment of the U.S. dollar, of inflation, of new policies in place to incentivize and decrease spending or behaviors, right?
Yeah.
So I would, and it's been noted, there's people that say the U.S. dollar's gone in inflated inflationary experiences of up to 25% or 20% in the last, 12 months or 24 months. So things like that create, again, an emotional experience for buyers, for people in the market space. We start to question, okay, well, my pay increase has gone up maybe 4 to 7%, but my value of my dollar or the cost of the house has gone up 60%. Like that, those things don't necessarily line up all the time. And if we continue to experience this, people start to think, okay, when does this stop? When do we reset, right? Or what does a reset look like if there is one? And if not, then how much is this going to go up? Like, can I even afford a house anymore?
Yeah, no, it's
and that leads to like fatigue, right?
Yeah.
Have you experienced that a little bit recently?
Buyer fatigue, where they're just kind of like, man,
they're burnt out.
We'll go through, X amount of homes, and they get bid here, bid there, and I've seen somebody lately that let's just get through the summer. Let's go enjoy summer. I've had
we'll come back to it.
Yeah,
it's already high.
Yep, we'll come back to it. I literally had a client 2 weeks ago. They're like, hey, we bought a camper. We're going up to North Idaho for 2 weeks.
I just got off a call today with that same thing. We got an RV. We're just gonna go explore beautiful Idaho.
Yeah,
I'm like, dude, that's awesome.
they need that mental reset, right? So yeah, that buyer fatigue it's real right now, and we're all feeling, even as agents, right? We feel it.
And it's not a huge thing too, but nationally speaking, there's about 11% of recent home sales in the past months have been executed by LLCs and entities. You've heard probably on the news about Wall Street and certain companies getting involved with acquiring single-family neighborhoods, not homes, neighborhoods. Yeah, and these are up in the hundreds of millions of dollars of acquisitions to basically create a new wedge against inflation, have cash flow on day one, and have a portfolio to divest into their investment clients, right? So that's interesting too. And who knows when they're gonna, and that's weird, because instead of having 100 people and 100 people owning a single family home, and then when they go to sell, it's one at a time, or a trickling effect. You have a company that owns 60 in a certain neighborhood out of 100, and if they choose to liquidate their portfolio, they can change the market locally there in a heartbeat. And it's not a huge concern. Like I said, it's about 10-11% nationally speaking, but that's still significant in comparison to what it used to be. So I think that's another thing, which leads kind of to what is a real emotional response, is where we get into panic selling.
And I've met with a few people. I actually know a builder in Eagle that wants to sell his primary residence because he's seeing these same signs, because he's in the industry. He's like, maybe we just sell our primary, move into our rental just down the road, and see what happens, right? And
see what happens.
That's the thing. Everyone wants to see what happens. And so I mean, panic sellers, right?
And that can happen. That's when we start getting into massive inventory dumps, and that helps, for our market. Now, so a positive side for Boise in terms of stability or sustenance is that we have a massive demand, right?
Yeah.
So last few months we've been in the about negative 70-75% year over year negative inventory supply. As of this last 30 days, it's gone down into the 50 percentile for Ada County. Canyon County is not too far behind, somewhere in the 30s. But that's that's a lot to make up for in terms of inventory. So that's a good thing, meaning we can probably ride through quite a bit of transition or shifting before we really stabilize. And then where it may go from thereafter, I'm hoping we see a stabilization, prices come into more of a consistency, and we start seeing more like 30 to 60 days on market, which is healthier.
I just had that conversation this morning. I was like, hey, this same seller has called me the last 30 days. Hey, has this house sold? Could you look up this one? Has it sold? And I'm like, oh no, it hasn't sold. He goes, why? Why has it made it past the first days? It's like, hey, it's the first 4 or 7 days. I was like, let's we're okay to be on the market for 15 days. We're okay to be on the market for 30 days.
And we're going to have to get comfortable with that again, because that's going to, eventually in a healthy market, as we go through cycles, which we will, that's where we got to get to.
So I think we're going to see some price decreases because people are getting very comfortable pushing that envelope, right? Pushing the envelope of, we were pricing houses, or I shouldn't say I saw people pricing houses that it's like, where was that valuation from?
And not even, it doesn't
exist. Where was that?
Oh yeah, we've had memes and laughable things in office and in circles, and even with clients where they'll send me something and be like, how did they get this price point? And you're like, don't ask me. They're shooting for the moon, and then they landed on it. And that's not going to happen anymore.
And so we've already seen some price decreases, and I saw a $50,000 price decrease in their first 13 days on market. Which was pretty.
And we had, just to touch on, we had one of the largest builders in our valley. They've had over 50% of their active inventory had a price reduction in the last few weeks, right? So, and most of those being this week. The majority.
Which really gets your mind thinking, why? What, obviously very knowledgeable builder. What's he seeing? Why does he not want to? He doesn't want to have inventory. He doesn't want to be. I hate to say it, but he doesn't want to be stuck with the inventory of something.
And when things shift, and in markets like this, here's the caveat, right? You could go and liquidate, become cash heavy, or have cash on hand, or have no debt, or get into that situation, and nothing may happen. And you have a peace of mind with maybe some more money or whatever it is that brings you, allows you to sleep at night, right? Or the other side of the coin is that, most folks that are very logical about how they do their expenses and their expenditures, they can be in a position where they can ride through this. Maybe you decrease, if you have investments, you decrease rent by 20% ahead of time. You get stable renters in there, and you make sure that your property maintains. And as long as your cash flow, or you come into a slight in the black a little bit, that's okay, right? So that's kind of an overview of some things we've been seeing in the market. And we just, our job and our responsibility as licensed agents is to be forthright with insights that we've seen. And these have all come about in the last, especially for me this week, especially the last 4 or 5 days, but had a sentiment to explore these things in the last couple of weeks. So I think...
No, I agree. And we have to talk about it, right? And I know I'm not going to say any names. There's people that just don't want to talk about it.
A lot of people don't want to talk about it.
And there's people saying the opposite of this, right? And it's just...
And we haven't been through the 08, reset. So it's not like we have historical experience with this, but we have been wise in learning from people that have gone through that. We've taken a lot of insight from people in our market. We talked to a ton of investors. We talked to people in the building community, developers, businesses,
even nationwide investors that we watch.
I've talked to people in Indiana, Texas, Pennsylvania, in Tennessee, and Florida. Investors and real estate folks for my own due diligence and our own portfolio stuff in the last week and a half. And I've had people say, hey, surprising, I've had a wait list for 6 months for properties. I have 10 new properties available for you to see today. And I'm like, it's interesting. So these people are liquidating.
It's interesting. So we're really excited to kind of see where this goes. I think all in all, this just creates a more healthy market, right? It's going to create more inventory.
Yep.
more jobs, more
More opportunity.
more tax money for infrastructure, which we need.
So
Right?
let us know if you guys have questions, comments, leave them in the comments, or give us a call and let's have a conversation about what you want to do and what your long-term goals are with real estate. So thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.
Take care.